Welcome everyone to Already Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Tara, and this is our top 10 episodes of The Twilight Zone, Season 3. It's been a long time coming. Yeah, it took us a while to get through Season 3. I mean, not just because there was 37 episodes, which is ridiculous, but...
way too much.
Yeah, but we had a couple of breaks here or there for different reasons where we had to slow down for a bit. So it probably took something like maybe a full year to get through the season, give or take, if I was to guess. I mean, I can actually I can go back and see what episode 1 was and just work it out, but that's cheating. you got to just assume things.
I was in my old place and I moved here in March.
So the way this works, if you've not watched one of these before, is that when we're done with the season, we'll do a top 10. That'll be different for season 4, of course, because there's only 18 episodes, so it'll just be a top 5 for season 4. But for all the bigger seasons, top 10, and as a bonus at the end, we'll do 3 worst episodes as well. But this is not my list, it's not Tara's list. This is a list that we sat down and worked on together and agreed.
We fought.
There was fights. There may be one or two that are only for one of us, because we really fought to get it in, and we made some compromises.
There are a lot of good episodes in season 3.
Yeah, I would say there was something like 13 to 15 that were sort of in contention, and then we had to get rid of everything and sort of decide which 10 were making the cut. So here we are.
That's right.
So without further,
we even fought over the worst episodes too.
I kind of, yeah, we kind of fought over those, yeah. But anyway, without further ado, let's get into it. So number 10 for season 3 is Nothing in the Dark. This is episode 16, and this was one that Tara fought tooth and nail for to get on this list. So you can...
I'm really surprised that you did not enjoy this one as much as me.
I didn't think it was bad, but I wasn't as enthusiastic about it. So
I love the episode. I mean, it's not just that we get handsome young Robert Redford in it, but also I think it is just a really nice story about a woman who's very elderly, who is afraid of death, afraid of the next stage, and she's so afraid that she locks herself in her apartment or wherever she lives in her home, that she won't let anybody she knows in, because she knows death could be anybody and death could come in. And then she finally gives in because ultimately she does have a good heart, and she lets in a police officer who's been injured, and of course that young beautiful man turns out to be Death. It has this Meet Joe Black kind of layer to it, and I really like that movie as well. And it reminds me of well, not just that, but I think it's a nice tale about accepting that death is a part of life, and although you want to avoid it as much as possible, there will come a time where you shouldn't be afraid of it, that it can be this warm comfort of, it's my time to go. Time to make room for the next generation, for them to live on and live good lives, and for me to step out of the way. Yeah. I think it's a really, really great episode.
I think this came up probably in the episode itself, but I'd never seen Meet Joe Black and had no idea what it was about. So the comparison again was lost on me, even though I'm sure you explained it at the time.
Well, Meet Joe Black is based on a short story, I think, called Death Takes a Holiday, and I'm not sure if this episode is also based off of that or not, but I doubt it.
Yeah. Okay. But that's number 10. That's Nothing in the Dark. Number 9 is The Dummy. This is episode 33 of the season. This is about a ventriloquist whose dummy, as far as we can tell, is actually alive. Although, of course, it is one of those episodes where you could sort of say, is it all in his head? Is the dummy really alive? There's a couple of hints that he might be. There's a couple of things that say, oh, maybe it is just in his head. I think it's open to interpretation somewhat. My favorite thing about this episode, though, other than some stylish filmmaking, is that it's kind of all just a metaphor for his demons, and you can track that to, specifically in this case, alcoholism, but it could be anything. It could represent anything. Someone's demons that stop them from interacting with others, from getting ahead, from forming new relationships, from being successful in what they do. And it's kind of this sad story of him trying to switch to a new dummy, leaving his demon behind, but it's still calling out to him in the dark. It's still drawing him back in and bringing him back. And that's where you can sort of see, like, yeah, it's the alcoholism, like, bringing him back and not letting him move on. So I think that's what I liked about this, is that it's the metaphorical side of it, on top of just some of the fun of, like, because some of the shots of the dummy, like, turning its head or, you know, moving when you're not looking at, were effectively creepy, you know. They kind of work.
Dummies are always going to be kind of creepy.
They're inherently quite creepy. Unless you make a whole movie about it and call it The Boy, in which case they're suddenly just a stupid, pathetic little thing that has no scare value whatsoever. What's your feelings on the dummy?
Not seen it. I don't know. Actually, I remember watching the episode and going, well, that was kind of a good episode. But then after our discussion, I thought, well, actually, that episode was pretty great. Like, there's a lot more going on than I realized, because I was sort of taking not the alcoholism route, but like the mental illness part of it. Because they sort of said, well, he's been diagnosed with schizophrenia, but what if it's like schizophrenia, but it's a real thing that's coming through that makes it look like schizophrenia? But either way, like, you want to interpret the episode. I do like your interpretation a lot better, and it seems to be very intentional. And yeah, it's an episode I thought about more and more afterward, and liked it the more I thought about it.
Which is a sign of a good episode, Lord. You know, if it does keep you thinking, it does keep you sort of reconsidering what it is. It makes a lot of sense. Number 8 is The Little People. This is episode 28 of the season, and this is about 2 astronauts who land on some moon or planet, but they find a civilization that is tiny compared to them, and
like microscopic.
Yeah, and one of them gets sort of like a god complex and decides to, like, make them worship him, and he becomes this dictator. And to the point where they build, like, a statue that's like life size, which to them is even more impressive than, like, the pyramids to us, because it's like, if you think about how tall he is compared to them, this would be like us building something that would reach space. Yeah, it would literally reach orbit, probably. The head would be poking out of the top of the earth.
It's like building a Himalaya.
Yeah. So it's just this little. It's got a bit of a quirky sense of humor to it. So it's not like a super serious episode, but there is kind of a serious point to be made about the ideology of these 2 characters, and the one who's taking advantage of it, and the other one who isn't. And the idea that him just kicking some sand over it is, to them, is like a sandstorm, and it's like, oh, he's causing the weather to change, and, you know.
Right? Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's just a really fun exploration of the idea of, like, something who is either more advanced or much bigger with a pure godlike, when in reality he's just bigger. That's all he is.
I think it's really fun that we get it from the perspective of us also, versus, like, rather than we're the ones being invaded by something that we see as godly, we're the ones that are doing the invasion, or like, well, we can use this to our advantage, or someone else being like, oh, can't we just be benevolent and and leave?
I will say the ending's fun. I won't spoil it, but I will say it's probably the most predictable ending that they could have done as a Twilight Zone twist. But that's not to take away from it, because it's got a really fun spirit, and I think I came out of this going, that was just a really nice, simple idea that, you know,
that really worked. I thought,
so yeah, good stuff. Number 7 is The Midnight Sun, and this is episode 10 of the season. This is an episode that's actually not too dissimilar in concept to a movie we did on the Atomic Cinema Experiment, which we really liked, actually. It was called The Day the Earth Caught Fire. It's about the Earth getting closer to the sun gradually, so it's getting hotter and hotter and more unbearable, and eventually everyone's going to die because it's, you know, it'll hit that point. So the story focuses on 2 women who are neighbors in this building, and one is, you know, like, I don't know, 30 or something like that, and the other one's a bit older and maybe in her 50s or 60s. And I think, other than just the raw kind of, like, way it treated, like, their existence and food getting more scarce, and, like, all the cars that have just been abandoned outside as people have been trying to flee and things like that, is it got surprisingly dark and, like, post-apocalyptic in a way that I don't think I've seen from any other episode of the Twilight Zone, where there was a point where this woman felt very vulnerable to a man who has broken into the house, and everything, all the way it was filmed and the way it sort of teases that someone's trying to sneak in, all felt very intimidating in a way that I don't feel like I've felt that threat And that's why I
I
was
don't
an
know
episode.
if we've ever had any like implied rape in this show also, which is clearly what woman is afraid of from this man coming in.
And it actually turns out that was never really something he was considering or that he was in danger of doing, but it feels that way up until it's not. If it's it's a possibility until it's clear that that's not what he's going to do, but it does feel that way. You're right. So it
is. This one like feels the most like a little mini movie out of all of them. I think the way it's filmed is very stylized. I don't think we get a lot of narration from Rod in this one also. And there's like almost this dreamlike sequence, which is funny to say, but you know what I mean, where like she has visions of like she's a painter and stuff, and it eventually becomes too hot that the paint is melting, and then you see like the actual pictures all like melting all around her and stuff, and is she just going crazy, or is it like the end of the world is happening like at this moment? It's a really cool scene.
Yeah, painter as an artist, because when you said painter, my first thought was someone with like a roller like doing a wall.
Sure, she's painting pictures.
Yes. The only reason why this isn't maybe even a little bit higher is because I do think the ending maybe goes a little bit too far with the twist upon a twist. We won't spoil it for the sake of this video, but I think it just went one step a bit too far. I didn't need it, but it doesn't ruin the episode by any means. So
I forgot we're not doing spoilers in this, and so
no extreme spoilers, no.
Okay.
So there you go. That's number 7. Number 6. This may be one of the more unconventional choices we have, and I always like to have a couple of these just to make us different from everyone else.
We genuinely love this episode too.
Yeah, number 6 is A Piano in the House. This is episode 22, and this one's rated on IMDb is not that high. It's about a sort of shitty husband who buys a player piano for his wife, but it's got a sort of magical quality where when one of the songs is played, it kind of reaches out to someone who's nearby, and they end up confessing something about themselves that is emotionally, I don't know, inspired or connected to by the song, and it leads to their housekeeper revealing something true about them, which leads to them leaving it. And he's so impressed, and he's such a vicious man that he enjoys like breaking people down and having them admit their fears.
He purposely has a party,
yes,
so that he can try to draw truths out of people, and he doesn't even seem to be like upset like his wife makes a confession about something. He doesn't really seem like all that upset about it. Like he's sort of vindicated with his suspicion, but it's more like he just wants people to be humiliated. Yeah,
he's enjoying the humiliation even when it's news that should upset him. And obviously, without getting too into it, it is eventually going to be used on him. He eventually will be the victim of it. And the way I would break it down is it's just a really good character study. The way he reacts to everyone else, and then the way that everyone else's confessions and the way they talk about him reveal who he is. By the time it happens to him, it feels like a payoff to like all the build up of who this character is, and it feels like, oh no, this was a great character study of an episode that just happens to have a really cool gimmick to like get to that point. So I thought it was well written.
Yeah.
I really did.
I agree. I do like this episode a lot, especially after our discussion also. But one thing that really struck me about the episode is there's one moment where there's a woman who's overweight, hears a song, and it brings up this, it's not really a memory, it's more of a desire of, she wants to be beautiful, she wants to be graceful. Like it reminds her of a ballet, so she starts imagining herself as this beautiful ballerina and dancing. And then when the music ends, she just sort of like slumps down and just becomes crushed, like emotionally devastated by bringing this truth out to, like, it was just such an intimate personal moment, and her acting was so good that I got emotional from it. And I think it's music can be that powerful. I think honestly, even today I drove to the store and I put on a song, and it's just an instrumental song from a film, and it made me cry like immediately. And it wasn't like sad tears. I just get so moved by music sometimes, so it kind of translates well into this episode.
I have to ask, what was the movie?
Okay, it's James Newton Howard, and he did a song
I do like him a lot.
He did a song for a film called Dinosaur, which is, I think Disney did it.
It's Pixar.
Disney or Pixar, yeah. I wasn't sure which one.
Oh no!
And actually, the movie's not great, but like, there's the one song about, it's called like Follow That Egg or something. It's right in the beginning, but it's such a good song, and it's used in a lot of trailers actually, and it still like makes me cry when I hear it.
Yeah. So actually, I think I was thinking The Good Dinosaur, which is Pixar. So just to be confusing, that they have.
No, this one was from 2000.
Oh yeah, so yeah, this is like, you know, it's not pre-Pixar, but I think it's pre-Pixar being owned by Disney. So
right.
All right, cool. So that was number 6. Good episode. Number 5 is The Trade-Ins. This is episode 31 of the season. So this is a story about an elderly couple who go to what is, you know, a relatively normal but maybe slightly new service in this world, where they can go and buy some replacement younger bodies, where they'll be transferred into these younger models, and they pick out a pair of bodies, but the core problem of the episode is that they can't afford to pay for both, and they both want to like be young together. So it's like, well, no, we're not going to like to take, you know, just one of us.
Yeah, and he's in a lot of pain.
Yeah,
and because he's old and his body's broken.
But the wife is like, no, you've actually got health issues. You might not like make it the time it takes us to raise these X thousands of dollars. So you should take it first, and I can do it later because you can work again. You can be a young man and earn a paycheck, and then, you know, pay for me later. And he tries to go and like sort of double his money with gambling. And I wouldn't really say any more about the plot at this point, because I feel like anything else is spoiler. I'll just say that it's this old man's performance, and there's some sad truth behind it, which I won't get into either. You can watch a review to get the full backstory on this. But this old man, like, this actor specifically gives such a genuine, heartbreaking performance about how much he loves his wife and wants her to like be alive with him in this new form, that it's hard. Let's be honest, like, the episode's pretty good. His performance is what elevates it onto this top 10.
Totally. Like, this episode, I mean, I know I said it, the last one had an emotional moment, but this episode like really got me because of his performance. And when you told me the background of why the actor was able to channel that, like, it is crushing. It is so sad. And like, you know, he's not acting in that moment. And I agree. Like, this is the episode that really stuck with me. I had this much higher on my list because of just the emotions it got out of me. Yeah. I know I cry kind of easily, but like, if like Follow That Egg makes me cry when I drive to the store. But it's very, very good. Hey, very great episode.
James Newton Howard's score for Unbreakable makes me tear up a little bit. Okay, so I mean, we're both there. It's fine. So yeah, number 5 is The Trade-Ins. Number 4. Again, I think this one's maybe a little unconventional for most people, but number 4 is One More Pallbearer. This was episode 17. This is an outrageous episode where a character who has a vendetta against multiple people who he believes have ruined his life, he invites them to a doomsday bunker that he has built underground, underneath a skyscraper, and tells them all that he's got secret knowledge. He knows from the sources that the world's about to end, and that he is trying to make amends with them by offering them all a chance to stay here and survive. And like, it's a mixed group of people. One's a priest that he knew when he was a young kid, one's a teacher from his youth, and then I think the other one's it's
like a military officer.
Yeah, it was like who discharged him when he was in military academy or something like that. And
he is successful now.
Yes, he's got wealth, and he's now here to flaunt it in their face and say, but I can be your savior now. All you have to do is like apologize and like beg.
Yeah, tell me that I was right and you were wrong.
Yeah.
It's a very strange revenge story.
It's a very strange revenge story, but it's so high concept in a weird way that I kind of loved it. And I think
definitely.
I think the ending is actually a really good subversion of a typical Twilight Zone twist, because I kind of predicted the twist, and I was kind of like, I hope it's not this, and it kind of did it, but then it subverted it, and I was like, oh, you knew I would be thinking that, and you had some fun with this. And it made me like the episode more. This is the opposite to the end of Midnight Sun, where
you like the double twist.
Yeah, it went an extra step, but that extra step actually took it and did something with it and meant, okay, this actually is even better now, because it took it and it turned it into another layer that made sense and enhanced the story and enhanced this guy's own like self-obsessed kind of nature. Worked with the character quite a bit, I thought.
Right. I mean, our lead in this is a really very unlikable person, and who is demanding that people be as selfish as him. Like, if we really break down to when it comes to survival, people will do anything. And I like what the characters do in this episode a lot. And I think this one's rated pretty low, I think. And we were both pretty surprised by that, because I think we both were immediately, not just after our conversation, like came out of the episode going, that was great.
It's a battle of like, I'm not saying he's the Joker, but this kind of reminds me of the type of like sort of predicament the Joker will present to a group of people, or even Batman himself. Like the idea that he's trying to prove that we're all shitty people.
It's the two boats. One full of prisoners.
It's the two boats. Yeah. But the idea that maybe people will surprise you and make the humane choice, and so a little bit of that in there, then it's good. So, and I like that we get a lot of his prep, again, not to spoil some of the stuff that happens in it, but there's a lot of preparation he makes in this room, and I love that it kind of points out a lot of it to explain the episode as it plays out. I dig that a lot. So it's good stuff. All right, that's number 4. Number 3 is The Shelter. This is episode 3, in fact. Look at that, episode 3 at number 3. This is an episode where a bunch of families are having a dinner party, and they all live in the same street, and they've all come to this one house to have dinner. And they make fun a little bit of the host, because he's spent a few years building a bomb shelter in his back garden. And then they hear in the news that they get the warning, right, that the missiles are coming, and it becomes this fight where all of the neighbors start to demand like a place in their bunker, and he only has room.
But the bunker's only built for 2 people.
Well, no, it's like 5, because it's them and their kids.
They have
like
I don't even remember the kids being in the episode.
They have like 3 kids, I think. So yeah. Well, maybe I'm misremembering, but I'm pretty sure they had kids. But anyway, but the idea is like, no, we don't really have room for any extra people, right? So we can't. And the rest of it, because there's definitely a point early on in this episode where the rest of them just decide there's enough for at least one family to join them, even though the host has never said that. So they all start fighting over who gets to join them in the bunker. And it becomes this really vicious, like just cold look at humanity, of how people turn on each other, of how at one point a character turns to racism just all of a sudden, to like say, no, right, I should get in there because I am not an outsider like you, kind of thing. And it gets really biting. This I mean, it's not even satire, that's not the right word, but the cold analysis of like humanity is.
It's such a nice contrast from the way the episode begins, where you just see these families and couples, and clearly they've all been friends for a long time and they all really love each other, like, and to this change, like this turn, like when people are fighting for survival, like it's a bit of the opposite of what the Polberry episode is about, but like what your priorities are when it comes to survival, and that you would do anything, and like it would bring out some sort of almost animalistic instincts of
it's funny actually that we've
doing
got
whatever it takes.
It's funny that we've got these back to back, because not only are they kind of counterpoints in terms of one's kind of the worst of people and one's maybe like the best of people by the end, is that they are actually both literally about the idea that bombs are coming and decisions people are going to make. So it's they kind of counterbalance each other quite nicely in a weird way. But yeah, no, it's really biting. The ending is perfect. Obviously, I won't spoil it, but it is a perfect conclusion to this story that it just works. It's probably very predictable as an ending, but it doesn't matter because it's the perfect ending for the story. It's how it should end. So. Yeah, can't recommend Shelter enough. This is like one of those great just like idea episodes that explores us. It explores how we react to things.
Yeah, it does remind me a bit of The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street, which is another like classic, 10 out of 10 episode. Yeah,
I might like The Shelter a little bit more.
Yeah, I know you don't like that episode.
I do like that episode. I just didn't unconditionally love it 10 out of 10. Okay, that's all.
Yeah, I remember you hated it.
This slander and misinformation that's been spread about me will not stand. Thank you very much. So that's number 3 is The Shelter. Number 2, To Serve Man. This is episode 24 of the season. And this
The
is
best
about
episode of the season.
You really had to drop that immediately. You had to say this is what I wanted at number 1.
This is what I wanted at number 1. I love this episode.
Why did you didn't have to tell them that. You could have stood by. No, we made a choice, we debated, and we came up with this order.
I mean, some blood was drawn over this, but yeah.
It's an excellent episode. No one's arguing that.
Hey, number 2 ain't bad.
This is
Or
about
second number 1.
this is about aliens who come to Earth and make contact with everyone, and basically, unlike a lot of stories with aliens, are just like, no, we're here to, help and give you our technology and like guide humanity, and we're here to serve man. And well, they don't say that,
We
but
have a paradise where we live.
Yeah.
Like, if you guys want to come over and check it out sometime, like, we're friends now. We're neighbors.
and to say where the title comes from would be spoiling the end of the episode. Like, it's kind of,
I love that you didn't know the twist.
I did not
when
know
you
the
watched
twist.
this
No.
episode.
This was a surprise. Well, wasn't it? I mean, like, I think they set it up enough that it wasn't like a complete shock at the end of the episode. But
I don't know. You sent me a text like, ho, ho, ho. That was great.
That's not how I speak.
You say ho all the time. Maybe it's just when you talk to Tim.
No, I say hey ho. That's a
Yeah.
word I use.
Hey and ho. Hey
No,
ho.
No, hey ho, one word. Like hello. I don't really say it out loud. I always say it in text. It's a typing thing I do.
You say it all the time. I've never read your text that said hey ho.
I don't say that out loud all the time, do I?
Absolutely you do.
Hey ho.
I would say it's one of your catchphrases if you were to
catchphrase.
have such a thing.
Catchphrase. How dare you? I have catchphrases. That is not one of them. How dare you? No. So
How dare you call me ho all the time?
I'm not calling you a ho.
And how dare you not have this episode at number 1?
I like how that could be determined though, that me saying hey ho is me saying hey ho. How do you do ho?
I never interpreted it as one word. It's always been 2.
But yeah, no, so this is like, obviously the humans want to accept this help. They debate it a little bit, but they're not really sure. So as like the aliens are kind of integrating more and more and giving out the technology, there are some like people in the military and the government trying to like look for any signs that they're being mischievous or up to no good, and they're trying to crack the code. But
They are still foreigners after all.
well, naturally.
With better technology.
But yeah, so I mean, I don't want to spoil the ending, but it is kind of like all a
It's
build
great.
up to what it's really going on, and it kind of explains why they're offering to help with specific things throughout the episode. So,
Yep.
so yeah, well, there's not much more to say. So yes, so for the record, that got to number 2 because Tara wanted it at number 1 and I wanted it at number 3. So 2 was the obvious landing place for it. I wasn't going to bring that up, but you had to shout out the second I said the title. This should be number 1.
The best episode of the season, yes. All right, let's move on to the second best.
No, the best episode of the season, number 1, as we decided together, is It's a Good Life, which is episode 8 of the season. It's a very famous episode about a kid who can just make people disappear, so all of the adults are terrified
Little
of him.
baby Lanier.
It is Lanier from Babylon 5, this is true. This is just a really good horror episode. Like the way the parents have to, and all the adults have to like act around them, and they're scared of saying something that'll piss him off. Like,
Or he'll send you to the cornfield.
yeah, all of it's just really well handled, and I like that it's not something. Because as this is one of the we had a comment, not on this Twilight Zone, this show, but the newer Twilight Zone, where they had a problem with us complaining about how bad some of the twists were. And they said something to the effect of all the old episodes had twists. And I immediately went, no, they don't. Tons of them don't have twists. Like, I get that Twilight Zone is famous for having a lot of twists, but not all of them do. And this is definitely one that does not have a twist. It has a premise, it has a unique premise about what this kid is and how the adults are reacting around him, but there's no twist at the end. So
Nope.
and there's plenty more good episodes that don't have twists. And there's good episodes that do have twists, but I just this is like one of the key examples I would bring up to say, no, there's no twist in this episode. And it's one of the most beloved episodes of the entire show. So
beloved that they redid it in the movie.
Yes. Which we will see.
Maybe directed by Spielberg. I'm not sure.
Is that a Spielberg one, or did he do one of the other ones? Because it's like three. Because each segment had its own director in the movie, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know. This one was very horror. I mean, in this episode and in the film, and I think the really terrifying thing about it is that because it's coming from the brain of a child, like when he does something, he doesn't just like murder people. He transforms them into something. Like if someone becomes a jack-in-the-box, when he talks about a dog, like he turns it into this creature that doesn't exist in the real world. It seems like something that would be in a lot of pain for the dog to go through.
And do you know what it sounded like? So when you describe things like that, where it's like, oh, he turned them into something that's not anything that is in the world, right? Something new and weird. It sounds almost like you're talking about like a Lovecraftian horror, where we're starting to bring in things that we can't comprehend because they're just so surreal.
Or like Cronenberg, even like just something that is grotesque and like the thing that was transformed is probably in a lot of pain.
But it's all implied, which I actually think makes it more effective. Like I love that you don't see
we
most
see
of
like
it.
the Jack in the Box like shadow, and like we'll actually see the head also, but also he keeps talking about like I sent them to the cornfield. Or if you don't think happy thoughts all the time, I'm going to send you to the cornfield. And you're like, okay, the cornfield could mean like death, like just we're like a coffin, we're going to kill you. But more than likely, sending them to the cornfield is probably some other type of transformation that is horrible and grotesque and something you definitely don't want to do.
I think I almost just imagine they all become scarecrows, like because it's a cornfield.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah, that's just the obvious answer.
But it just seems like it would be a lifetime of pain that you'd have to suffer because you went against this kid, and he is just a child. He's like maybe 5 years old in this, and he's, it is an episode about people being afraid of somebody who is very powerful, but you have to talk to like a child all the time, so they don't always understand the way the world works. And instead of trying to explain it to them because it's too terrifying, because the consequences are so terrifying, you have to try to put like these rainbows and butterflies around it to where it sounds nice still. And that's just not how we deal with real issues in the world. Like we have to talk about things as they are, even if it's hard to deal with. So I think this, obviously it's a brilliant episode, and it's a really great like horror episode, and the lessons of it are very cool.
You just completely justified why this is at number one.
I still like to serve man just a skosh more.
Yeah. But
also, I think the movie version of it's really good.
we agreed this was number one. Can't take it back now.
Well, we settled on this being number one.
You got nothing in the dark on there, okay? We there was compromise, there was give and take, there was compromise. We came to a nice solution. So that is the top 10. So I'll just reiterate the top 10 now quickly for you to hear it all in one go. Number 10 was Nothing in the Dark. And number 9 was The Dummy. Number 8, The Little People. Number 7, The Midnight Sun. Number 6, A Piano in the House. Number 5, The Trade-Ins. Number 4, One More Pallbearer. Number 3, The Shelter. Number 2, To Serve Man. And number 1, It's a Good Life. So that is the top 10 episodes of Twilight Zone Season 3 from us. But before we go, we're also shit on a couple of bad episodes. We got a bottom 3 or worst 3 or top worst 3, whatever you want to phrase it. This was actually really tough to do because we kind of came up with like a short list of about 7 or 8. And to be honest, they all felt kind of even. Like none of them. I think in prior seasons, like there was 1 or 2 that always stuck out as they're definitely the 2 worst. And then it was just like, okay, what's the third one going to be? This was like, nah, all 7 of these are kind of like in the ballpark, yeah. So we really had to sort of really like try and look at it almost like mathematically and just sort of tally up like what does each one do wrong, what kind of like gets to the shit list higher kind of thing. So yes, so just I'm prefacing this with that is that there really was like a handful to pick from.
This took us the longest. Also,
this was harder than
like, we
the top
actually
10.
had to think about it overnight.
So number 3 out of these worst 3 episodes. This is intentionally kind of a controversial one because this one is rated fairly highly and people did comment on our review saying they liked this one. But honestly, number 3 is The Grave, which was episode 7, and it started off solid.
Lee Marvin.
Yeah, the first half of it with all the talk of like him like claiming that he killed this guy and he's too scared to go out to the grave where he's buried because the ghost might get him. Like all of that build up I think is really well done. I just thought that the ending, the last 5 minutes, I thought sucked and was kind of this limp ending that didn't really amount to anything for me and felt a bit silly. So I'd say
I think it's not a very Twilight Zone ending. Also, it is very much like, oh, that's what this is about. And I'm pretty sure this one was based on a short story of the same name, and I'm sure the short story is great if I haven't even read it in school at some point. But like it does kind of just, yeah, it's a disappointing ending, especially for an episode that's got a great actor like Lee Marvin in it. I think Lee Van Cleef is in this episode too, which is pretty cool. I love Angel Eyes.
Yeah, like I was into it early on in the episode, but I was not satisfied with anything in the back half at all. Once he went out to the grave, it just kind of lost everything that they had going for it for me.
I mean, I understand the theme of the episode of like, well, I don't want to say too much because the ending really is the theme, but like I understand what it is, and I think that probably does make it a great short story. I just don't think it's a very Twilight Zone episode.
Yeah. Number 2 is episode 32, The Gift. And honestly, the first half of this one's a bit of a blur. It's like someone hiding in a Mexican village, I think. And
there's a kid.
Yeah, there's a kid, and he's hiding from the authorities. But the kid kind of befriends this injured guy, and he like there's some allusions to some biblical stuff as it sort of goes on. But honestly, the ending of this one again is just so stupid and like what it does.
The funny thing is, I think we both predicted the ending.
We did
separately.
I guess
which makes it kind of like also disappointing because it's a predictable episode.
It's predictable in a way that's not satisfying though. Like it's predictable in a way. I bet this is the stupid thing they were about to do, and then they did the stupid thing. And it just kind of made me roll my. And obviously, there's a moral behind it. There's a message behind it. It's all about people not trusting, and like him saying he's there for good reasons isn't enough. Like people have to like hunt and kill and blame him for things, and it's a very, you know.
It was done better in The Day the Earth Stood Still.
So, yeah, I suppose. I was thinking this is very much a Christian sort of story that it's trying to do, and parable.
And a wee bit of Frankenstein.
Sure.
Who are the real monsters? It's always man.
Yeah, but there's not a monster in this though. What are you talking about?
Well, he's an alien.
I forgot that, to be honest. I forgot he was an alien. Was he an alien?
Yeah, he's an alien who brings a gift.
Okay, fair enough. I've forgotten the alien part.
But he is very Jesus-like.
Yes, I mean the whole thing. It's very. I mean we can't say the ending. We can't say the ending, but
no,
it gets very Jesus-y. Let's just say that. So yes, did not enjoy that episode. And then number 1, is episode 11. It's called Still Valley, and this is the episode where Confederate soldiers discover a town of people who are frozen still. And at first you're thinking, okay, maybe this is a cool mystery, like why are they all frozen still, some sort of weird things causing this. but it actually just turns into them meeting a warlock who's got a spell book, and then it becomes this debate over, do we use the spell book to manipulate things or not? So I'm not saying there's not a potentially good like moral or story in there about like manipulating and like using like, you know, magic or other means that are outside the rules, if you will, to accomplish something. The
rules of war.
But I don't think it really does anything interesting with it. It's kind of a nothing episode, which, to be honest, like, it's a miracle I remember as much as I've just told you.
I think this is why it's our number one, because when we talked about the episode, or about what was going to be the worst episode, we're like, I just don't remember anything from this. Like, when you said Warlock, I was like, what? We watched a Warlock episode, and then like it started to come, oh yeah, he was like an old man. But I still had to think about the plot from there afterward. So it's probably like a fine episode, but it's so forgettable. And every time like Twilight Zone does the thing where somebody has to be completely still and they can't use like a still image, you're always going to get some shakes.
Oh yeah,
you always see some shakes, and it takes you out of it.
And I mean, that wouldn't be like, if the episode was good otherwise, that wouldn't be a problem, but it isn't, you know. It's kind of
but I think I remember this one having like longer takes of people and going through crowds of people who are trying to be as still as possible. You get some shakes, you get some blinks.
Yeah, and it's also that thing where I remember this having one of the most awkward ad breaks. And obviously we don't actually have ads, but we always get the ad break where it cuts to the title, and it's like a cliffhanger moment. This is one of the weirdest ones where it just felt like it happened in the middle of a scene, and it just like, there was no hook to what to come back to. If I was watching this on TV, and if I was tempted to change the channel, like, I was like,
I wonder what the weather is tomorrow.
Yeah, it's not doing much for me. The only thing in its favor is that the other channels wouldn't typically start something at, you know, 15:15 the hour when this ad break would be on, so there'd be nothing to switch to that's not already, you know, that's just starting effectively.
That's why you gotta check the weather.
That's why you check the weather. Yes. So yeah, I mean, I have to say, I don't have too much passion for these bad episodes in the same way that I think maybe the last season had like one or two stinkers that I really hated that I wanted to like rip apart. These are more just, okay, these were 3 of like the 7 that we kind of like pointed out, and for whatever reason that we felt more inclined to like spotlight these 3. But to be honest, you know, it's a pretty solid season. I would say there's probably just as many good episodes as there is bad episodes. I would say that the good episodes are fairly evenly spread out. I mean, I gave you the episode numbers as I did the top 10, and you know, they're fairly spread. Maybe I'd say it's a little bit stronger as the season goes on. There's only 2 from single digits, but once you get into the teens and up, they're fairly evenly spread out. So good season. I think what's funny is like what my observations now 3 seasons in would be that season 2 and 3 I think has higher highs than season 1, but season 1 might be more consistent overall.
Yeah. There's some classics from season 1. Season 1 had like Monsters Who Do It Maple Street. It had the Last Stop at Bellamy or something.
Willoughby. Last Stop at Willoughby.
Willoughby.
Yeah.
Yeah, Willoughby.
No, I think,
and it had, you know, the Burgess Meredith episode.
Yeah, but
those are pretty classic.
I'm saying personally though, I think season 2 and 3 have higher highs. I think the best 2 or 3 episodes from season 2, the best 2 or 3 episodes from season 3
Nick of Time
are some of the best episodes, not Nick of Time, are some of the best episodes of the whole show so far. But season 1 I think had less bad episodes. Not that there wasn't any, but it had less bad episodes.
It had the fever.
But that's just one.
That was such a bad one.
Name a second. See? My point stands.
Well, we definitely had 3.
Well, yeah, but we had more than 3 for this one. We had like 8. Like we had 8 that could have made the 3.
But like we said, they were kind of fine episodes. They just weren't very exciting.
No, but
they weren't like overtly bad.
Yes, but I do think I do genuinely believe this season has half good episodes and half bad, or at least a third good, a third mediocre, and a third bad, whatever you want to break it down. But it's very, very evenly spread. But the highs are very high. Whereas season 1, I think back to and I think, like I would say, like, out of those 36 episodes, I would say there's probably like 25 of them that are at least decent to good. And then of course there's some obviously higher highs than that. But that's all I'm trying to say. I'm just saying that this season had more bad episodes than season 1, but the highs are higher. So I mean, which do you think is better between those two? I mean, arguably it just breaks even, but yeah, that's my observation at this juncture. And how season 4 and its hour-long episodes are going to fare, we'll see.
Yeah, I was thinking, I've seen a lot of Twilight Zone, if not all of it in the past, because they used to, air it on TV all the time. I think it still airs actually on the Sci-Fi Channel every night. But they would do also like marathons for New Year's and stuff, and we just watch that. It tended to be a lot of the famous episodes, but I don't really know that I've watched any hour-long episodes of Twilight Zone, so these might all be new to me.
Yeah, and it's notable,
which is kind of exciting,
that there's only 18 episodes. It's literally half of the 36 that season 1 was. So it's kind of clear that their minutes are the same. They're still making the same amount of content as previous seasons. They're just doing it in 18 chapters instead of 36, which will have its pros and cons. We'll see if they shift to the new format and it feels like they're not stretching things out. But we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think the 80s one they are hour long, but I think they have like 2 stories in one episode. That's why.
Sure.
So each episode will be 2 different stories with 2 different writers and stuff.
I mean, maybe season 4 is like that, but it doesn't seem like it looking at the IMDb listings. It looks like it's just single stories. Which actually reminds me, I said at the end of the last review we should do the what's coming next time, and I don't think we did because I don't recall looking at this. So we'll do it now. Next time on Twilight Zone. So season 4 episode 1 is called In His Image, and the description on IMDb is as follows: a young man grapples with an urge to kill and confusion about his origins.
In His Image sounds familiar. Didn't we talk about that? Because it sounds like God creating man in His image.
I remember looking at this, but I mean, maybe I've just forgotten. It's entirely possible. But that's what's coming next, so look forward to that. Let us know what you think, or what your favourite episodes of season 3 of Twilight Zone are. What ones did we snub? Because there's definitely a couple of popular ones that we didn't put on there, and we liked that we did have a couple that we didn't just pick them because they're odd picks. We genuinely liked them enough to have on there, but I always like that there is a couple of like personal things that make you feel different to what the average top 10 for this would be. And what are your worst episodes? Let us know in the comments. So like, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications, all that stuff. It helps us out a lot if you do that. It helps out all YouTube channels, which is why they all tell you to do it. So please hit the buttons. And Tara, why don't you tell them about a place on the ether of time and space known as the Patreon Zone?
Submitted for your approval. You're wandering into a website called patreon.com/mildfuzztv, where you can donate as little as $1 per month, and with that dollar you'll get bonus episodes for other shows we do. And if you donate $5 per month, you will get access to these reviews. I almost said Babylon 5, these Twilight Zone reviews 1 week early. But you also get Babylon 5 early if you're interested in that. Thank you.
Yes. And also, if you enjoy our discussions, check out the Atomic Cinema Experiment. It's our sci-fi movie podcast over in Male Fuzz Movies, or in a podcast feed near you. We talk about a different sci-fi movie every week, and we're 140 episodes in, so there's a nice catalogue of episodes to wade through now and go have a look.
Didn't even know there were that many sci-fi movies.
Yeah. And if you watch them in order, you'll see Tara's hair grow from quite short to what it is now. It's quite fascinating. I could probably go back and like take like a second of each one and like sort of show it like growing.
Those videos do quite well. They might actually bring in some viewers
over time.
If you do a time lapse of hair growth.
Yeah, over 3 years, because it'll be 3 years in like 2 months. So maybe I could like, this is hair over 3 years.
Yeah. I did get it cut once to avoid a mullet.
Sure.
Although mullets are in now, so maybe I should have left it and been a trendsetter.
Are mullets also a women thing though? Do women get mullets?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think right now it's being referred to as the wolf cut, but it's a mullet.
It's a mullet. Okay. Okay, but that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. Always appreciate it. Keep watching TV in the Twilight Zone.